All right, we are back with more NFL coverage, and in this one, I'll be covering some of the most recent developments in the league over the past few days or so. Now, again, of course, I'm wearing a Steph Curry jersey. I'm not talking about the plan just yet, but man, it has been special so far, and I will eventually get to that. But of course, we're focusing on a completely different league here. And so to start things out, we have the Falcons a little bit last week, picking up Bijan Robinson's fifth-year option, rather. I was about to fuck around and say Brian Robinson Jr. for some reason. Whoa, holy shit. But yes, they, after doing the same thing with Drake London earlier in the offseason, they now do the same for Bijan Robinson. And I mean, when you look at both of those players, how I've already explained that in these cases, you have the opportunity to pay the player up front and give them a long-term extension there, or maybe you are extending this fifth-year option, kind of extending out the rookie contract and the worth of it for at least another season, and having this player at least prove to you in a single year what they can contribute on a football field to your team. And again, walking through that, Drake London himself, he's been a proven player. He's gotten in some injury trouble, but he's been nothing short of productive when he has been healthy and available for this Falcons team. And when you look at the entire core that they have, between the likes of Robinson, Pitts Sr., and London, you have to find a way to keep all three, because when they're at their full strength, I mean, there aren't many skill position players at each and every single one of those spots that are much better than any of those players. And that's before we even get to talking about Bijan Robinson himself. Bijan Robinson is a fucking monster. He's a monster. It's as simple as that. He's a monster. The potential was there coming out of Texas, but even there were a few questions surrounding his durability as he was entering the league. The talent was undeniable, and the production when he was out there was undeniable. Man was a star in the making at Texas. If I go back to the season in which he was there, let me see if I can find his college numbers, because I remember specifically watching him in that season, and he just went absolutely crazy right before he gets drafted. And at that point, naturally, your stock is going to rise as a player when you're putting up these kinds of numbers that he did in college. Literally, 2022 season, yeah, All-American, 9th place finish in the Heisman, and had 20 scrimmage touchdowns with 18 rushing and 1,580 yards, along with 1,894 total from scrimmage. So again, the production for him, it was there. The question now was, could he handle an NFL workload? And he virtually hasn't wasted a second doing exactly that since he's come onto the scene. He's been a day one starter for the Falcons, and he's just taken off. There isn't much more to say. Again, to find this path into becoming an elite player in the NFL is not always a linear process. But when you have the talent, you have the skill set to go out there and contribute early. Bijan Robinson is a proven example of what exactly that looks like. And consider this, the Falcons traded up with the Lions to go get him at the 8th spot. Now again, it was a win-win trade because the Lions ended up with Jahmyr Gibbs, and you have fans complaining about the fact that they got quote-unquote the worst of the running back offer here, but both of them are elite at this stage of their young careers. So you didn't really miss a beat. But Robinson is the full package. He is a taller running back at 5'11". He has the strength to move like a downhill runner when he wants to, and still has enough versatility, enough athleticism to make some of the sharpest cuts imaginable, some of the cleanest spin moves and juke moves imaginable to work out of tight spaces and get himself open on the run or out of the backfield. He's a full dual threat. Combined with that size and with that strength on his body to overpower defenders at will, whenever he sees fit. You can't ask for a more ideal model for today's running back. You can't. And again, you still have those guys at the elite level of NFL running backs who are going to be outliers in some fashion. You know, Derrick Henry is more of a downhill runner by nature. Saquon Barkley is an explosive runner as well. He is okay out of the backfield. Christian McCaffrey is a dual threat, but he's on the smaller end. And then you look at a guy like Bijan Robinson, who again for a while last season, he was on pace in terms of scrimmage yards per game throughout the entire year and finished with 2,298, which led the NFL, while also putting together a season where he almost went 1,000, had 1,478 yards and 7 rushing touchdowns on the ground to go along with 820 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns. I think some of that does come down to the fact that when he is a dominant player at his position, and when you have these teams crashing in to run, I don't think they seem to recognize that he is just as adept as getting out in space and creating a safety valve at times for his quarterbacks. Whether it was Michael Penix Jr. or Kirk Cousins, the man just kept on getting open out of the backfield. Because again, you think with his size, oh, he's just going to come out here moving slow as hell. No, there aren't many linebackers who can go toe-to-toe dealing with him in man coverage. And if they're in zone, if they're shading off or whatever, he's going to eat them up there as well. This is just how it works with a player of his skill set. He can beat you in so many different ways that you can't even count on one hand. And every week it can be something totally different. That's the man that defenses are going to key in on a week-to-week basis when they're facing off against him. And yet his entire mindset can consistently shift with those adjustments to where you know that no matter what, for the most part, you are getting a very productive game out of Bijan Robinson. And I think that is the key, more than anything else, for the elite players out there. Of course, we love the highlight plays, and we love to see those times where players can just go off at their absolute peak and put together monster seasons. But when you are now, and this is the case you can have for Bijan Robinson here, when you have a season like he did last year, you're leading the league in scrimmage yards, you're a matchup nightmare out of the backfield, and you are a terror to try to stop on the ground. Now more teams are again going to have more film on you. They're going to try to come up with more creative ways to make sure that they stop you. And in some games, there is just no stopping a player like Bijan Robinson. But in other games, they're going to try to slow him down. And those are going to be the moments right there where you get to really see what he does. How exactly does he adjust to those situations? And can he retain that consistent play, knowing that a lot of eyes are going to be on him? That is the mark. If they can match that week in, week out, those are the marks of a truly elite player. And you can say that Bijan Robinson's at that stage already. You can say that Bijan Robinson has very quickly etched his name very close to that upper echelon in the NFL. And I couldn't blame you either way. But no matter what you say, he is most certainly a player that they should want to keep around. I mean, again, you go and conduct the draft day trade for him, and you won it on your end. There were, in a perfect world, scenarios in which he could have been gunning for an MVP season. That's how versatile his game was. And he's now a 2-time Pro Bowler. He made All-Pro first team last year. So again, the ceiling, the talent is there, and you have even more people to this point recognizing it. It is going to be important to see how he adjusts. And the front office might have that in their mind. However, as I mentioned when it came to the JSN contract and how they cited Drake London as a potential candidate for a big payday at the wide receiver position, I had to question in that moment if the Falcons were really willing to go that route either. Because there is a world where they come off of year 3 seeing Bijan Robinson doing all of this. And they decide to just give him a large deal at the running back position. And to be honest, I still stand by that. All this time later, after the JSN contract, after that CBS Sports article came out citing Drake London as a candidate to get a long-term extension at the wide receiver spot, all this time later, I still do believe that the Falcons, with them making this move, they're opening up the floodgates a little bit to go out there right now and pay Bijan Robinson at least money that will put him in the top 5 of average salary amongst running backs out there. The only thing that could be holding them back from giving and allocating a long-term deal to Bijan Robinson might be the fact that because you paid fully guaranteed money to Kirk Cousins, you're eating up a lot of cap this season. You're taking on a large hit as a result of that alone. They had to buy him out, so he's probably off your books in years down the line. But you have a lot less space to work with if you are trying to break, even reset the running back market with giving Bijan Robinson that deal. That might be the one thing stopping them, and that would suck. But of course, if it does come down to that, if we go throughout this entire offseason without seeing Bijan Robinson ink a long-term deal, I think they have enough faith in him to continue producing at a high level, especially at this young age. He's only 24 years old. He'll be entering his 4th season up to this point. They always want to talk about the shelf life of running backs, but again, if we're following that logic, they believe that the peak of their value is going to come when they're in their younger years and maybe even nearing the start of the typical prime for a player in that position. So you're still going to get maximum value out of him in that way, and you get to keep him on the record, on your books rather, at a cheaper cost than what he is probably worth right now. It's not the worst thing in the world. Admittedly, there could be contract talks going on. There hasn't been much traction on that at all. I suppose I will take some time out to see if there's any buzz around it amongst Falcons brass. If there is, then that could be interesting. But for now, this just seems to be going pretty standard. So again, I'd be surprised, honestly, if Bijan Robinson doesn't get a deal. I can see why they would hold off. So we'll just see what happens from there. But nonetheless, man, he has literally warranted that kind of trust from this Falcons team. And even with a new regime coming in, with what they've been seeing from the outside, with what Matt Ryan has been seeing from Bijan Robinson on the outside while still having connections with that organization, they still know that, despite having to move on from Raheem Morris, despite having to clean house, if there are one or two players, maybe even three for them, that need to be staples of this roster moving forward, at least one of those names at the very top of the list is going to be Bijan Robinson. They know that. And so I'm sure that they're doing the best that they can to get all of this hashed out. Again, Bijan Robinson is not a player, if there were negotiations going on, he does not strike me as the kind of player who would just go all ballistic on a front office and do all this back and forth stuff about a deal. Doesn't strike me as that. Of course, the situation could arise where the Falcons try to undersell him and fuck around and find out pretty quickly what Bijan Robinson believes that he should be worth. So you don't want to do that to yourself. And that's, again, the thing as well when it comes to the risk of waiting. Because Bijan Robinson has been mostly durable. He's had minor injuries at the least. But he hasn't missed a game. Just think about that for a second. A player that is going to demand the ball in the way that he does. He is a full bell count. And again, mind you, he did miss a few games in college. So again, while it wasn't incredibly major, it was always a caution. The fact that this man has not missed a game in the NFL, while logging that kind of usage on a game-to-game basis, out there on most snaps, knowing that, again, defenses are going to laser focus on him specifically in run plays or even in plays out of the backfield. And he is still out there trudging through all of it. It's impressive. He saw his highest percentage of snaps with 79% last season. And he's consistently been over 68 since the beginning of his career. With Tyler Allgeier gone as well, it's like he's still going to be a player that commands most of the reps. A pure number one, 3-down running back. All right? He's going to command most of the reps. You know this. You just hope, if you're the front office, that he can remain healthy. Because it's a demanding task to take on that workload as consistently as he does and he will continue to do and not have a single blemish. It's difficult. It's a difficult ask. But a lot of power style backs have gone through it. A lot of them. Even when you look at a guy like Derrick Henry, for example, he had to deal with that a bit. More naturally due to the age component as well when it comes to him. So again, it's something to watch out for. But they're riding high right now, knowing that they have more than landed in slam dunk this fucking pick. So they're cooling right now. But They just, again, you have to be careful always when it comes to that. Now, to move on to the 49ers. They would sign cornerback Jack Jones to a 1-year deal. What exactly do they believe that's going to do? I'm not incredibly sure. Jack Jones is one of those corners who can be okay. And, maybe the 49ers mindset here is that they're looking for more of a rotational piece. He could, if he is asked to do that, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world for them. I mean, he's an okay cornerback. You have to admit that. He's not a player as well, especially when it comes to some of the other, polarizing moments he's become known for a little bit, whether it be him, clamoring with Patrick Mahomes or getting into a few beefs and stuff like that. He definitely is not going to take shit from other opposing wide receivers. And you might want to add that a little bit to your roster. It might help you. The only thing is that, again, in terms of corners, considering what you previously had, this is just not something that I don't think is going to really pay off all that much for them. They themselves, again, are just giving him a 1-year deal. They're trying to see if he can prove himself out there. And I think, again, as a secondary option, he may be able to slide in nicely there. But if they're expecting anything more out of him in terms of true shutdown caliber territory, I don't think that they're going to get that from Jack Jones at all. Not in the least. I've just got to be fair. I mean, again, individually, he's a solid cornerback. Unfortunately for him, he has been a part of just some bad teams, really. And maybe this, for him, is an opportunity to play more inspired football as a part of a team looking to be a championship contender and looking, as long as they stay healthy, to make consistent noise in the NFC West. I mean, granted, they very well could have. This is the same team that literally went 11-6 and made the playoffs while having to split the season with Mac Jones and Brock Purdy in that backfield. Because either of them would be injured or benched at any one point. And they still found a way through. Up until they had to run into that brick motherfucking wall. Just gotta be real. Again, Jones, for his career, that 2022 Pats team, not necessarily. Again, they were okay. I think that was the year where this Patriots team made the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken. Or no, that was the season before. Okay, yeah. Again, 8-9 record, okay, coming off of a playoff exit early to the Bills at that particular time. They got smoked in that 2022 wildcard game. But I digress. Again, 2023 was even worse for the Patriots. If we're going to look at it from that perspective, then you have him get traded or sent away to the Raiders. And it's the fucking Raiders. What do you expect? Then last year's Dolphins had virtually nobody at cornerback. Virtually nobody. I mean, Rasul Douglas, again, as great of a corner as he is, he himself had to go through more of a resurgent path to really become respected in his own right. And in terms of number one guys, true lockdown, all defensive, AP or first team defense, and I guess, just not that kind of corner on there, and everybody struggled. Because everybody, again, they weren't as good anyways, and they were hurt at that position. Now, again, you have Jones coming from that. You're looking at that with caution if you're San Francisco after dealing with the litany of injuries across your entire roster last year virtually. You definitely are kind of trembling a little bit at that fact. But if he comes in and he can play off of Diamador Lenoir, I suppose, along with the fact that you're building out this front seven in the way that you are, it might not end up being too much of a problem for them. And I think that's what they're banking on. They can have Jack Jones, right? You still have some other guys doing solid. Jair Brown was solid as a D-back. Markquese Bell was solid. And I think they also like what they've seen from Upton Stout as well. That could be a thing also. Jack Jones is not a crazy pickup or anything like that for San Francisco, but when you think about it in the way that Upton Stout ended up contributing to this team as a rookie last season, I feel like they'd want to incorporate him into the defensive rotation a little bit more. And so again, having Jones, at least in some cases, take the burden off, and in some cases even serve as a tertiary corner, it's a very low-risk concept to bring him in. And I think, again, you're willing to take that swing if you're San Francisco in this case. For a depth piece, you need as many as you can get so that in the event that you do have to deal with that kind of attrition, again, hopefully not in their case, you at least have some kind of preparation, some kind of cavalry to come in there and truly save you on all fronts. They are very much in need of that. Last Friday, the Packers traded Dontayvion Wicks to Philadelphia in exchange for a 2026 fifth rounder and a 2027 seventh rounder. Like I already mentioned in a different medium, I won't spend too much on this point, but I'm thinking that they are really, with this move, because the Packers already lost Romeo Doubs in free agency to the Patriots, and now you're sending away Dontayvion Wicks to the Eagles. You get the feeling that, again, the entire time they've been in this weird spot where you're just in a wide receiver by committee system. And I mean, I'm telling you, it's a good problem to have great wide receivers up and down your roster. Trust me, I understand. But when you have that many wide receivers on your team with untapped potential that hasn't necessarily been met yet in their first few years, and all of them still have yet to display that they are truly elite as an ex-receiver specifically, it gets to a point where the room's overcrowded. We have all this talent. There's an opportunity for somebody to elevate into a number one role at that position. And we still, all this time later, have not seen it. We have to figure this out. Now, again, in theory, Romeo Doubs had some opportunities where he looked like the number one. Christian Watson had some opportunities where he looked like the number one occasionally. There were a few games from Dontayvion Wicks including, I believe, the Lions game the game against the Lions on Thanksgiving. Performing the way he did with multiple touchdown scores just out of the fucking blue, just because he'd had some moments where he looks like the number one wide receiver, but nothing consistent amongst any of them. And so the Packers, I guess, ultimately came to the conclusion after seeing that hey, we've got to make something shake here. We just cannot keep allowing this to happen. If we truly want someone to elevate to that role, maybe we have to start trimming down this room of players a little bit. It also does help that Tucker Kraft was able to take the jump that he did as a player last year. That also helps immensely for a receiver core that is really trying to learn how they mesh with each other as players, all of them. I think with a move like that, they see real potential in a guy like Christian Watson or in a guy specifically like Matthew Golden to take that next level and take that next level early to become a main target and a more frequent target for Jordan Love moving forward. This is the same Matthew Golden who became the first receiver drafted in the first round for the Packers literally ever. Literally. From the moment he got selected there, poetically, in Green Bay, where the 2025 draft was held, I think they have an understanding that he can truly become something special in this league. Because, granted, the conversation was that while he could be one of the wide receivers to, be the best in that particular draft, like, he shot up draft boards with his performance at Texas. I didn't think he was necessarily considered to be going that high before the start of the college football season before last. And he shut all that shit up instantly with what he did at Texas. His ability to vertically stretch the field with his blazing speed, it's such a great asset that they figured it was worth taking a chance on. Now it's about making sure that he fills out the rest of his game. And I think that shortening the wide receiver room a little bit to give him more focus and give some of these other players a bit more focus can actually help him take a nice step forward. In the sense of, being coached up, getting more reps in practice to be ready for that moment and not having to worry so much about making a mistake and then subsequently being taken out of a drive or taken on the sideline to be benched in that moment. Because with that lack of extra talent there now, you're going to look more to guys like Watson, Reed, and naturally Golden. And it works perfectly. You have a guy in Christian Watson who could be a number one. Again, has the potential to do it with his own vertical speed. And he's got the frame for it, standing at 6'4". Then Matthew Golden could be your speed threat to be the number 2 wide receiver at the very least. And that's still lethal. By no means is that disrespect. That's a very good role for him. And then Jayden Reed, with what he has done as a gadget player and a slot wide receiver in some cases. Like, that is genuinely a dangerous receiving core for the Packers. It's not like they are just getting all these guys to just say that they have them. These are talented wide receivers. All three of them. Each and every single one of them have their own unique skill sets to thrive on this team. It is just about getting the concept of this shifted from the paper and shifted from the different sheets that these coaches have access to and create in terms of play calls and things like that. Got to get it off the clipboard and you have to put it on the field. It's as simple as that. Like, in theory, again, 6'4", 208 wide receiver in Christian Watson. A speed threat in Matthew Golden opposite him, and Jaden Reed torching up niggas in the slot. That is an ideal wide receiver core. They just, again, have to learn each other. They have to learn how to mesh together as a trio. They have not since they've all been together. And granted, that could be for a number of reasons. I mean, even Jaden Reed himself dealt with weird turf toe injury. Christian Watson's dealt with his fair share of injuries and some inconsistent play earlier in his career. And Matthew Golden, even though you can't hold it against him, some of the rookie mistakes flared up for him. And he also, again, stats aren't everything. He caught his first touchdown pass in the postseason. He went the entire 2025 year without catching a single touchdown pass as a rookie. Now, again, that doesn't define his career so early. He's only 22. That doesn't make him a bust. It's just about learning the game and growing your skill set. That's really what it comes down to. Damn, I actually made that tangent longer than I was expecting. But that's my case for the Packers there, just to explain that a little bit. I'll move over to the Eagles again, try to be brief. All I gotta say is this. You know it's bad because they had like a press conference yesterday for multiple organizations out there. And at a point, they asked Howie Roseman about the A.J. Brown thing and if this trade had anything to do with A.J. Brown's viability on this roster moving forward. And he just went ballistic. He's like, oh, I've been saying this in so many other places already. You think that's a good question for me to answer? And you really think that the answer that I'm giving you is going to be different from any other one that I've had anywhere else? A.J. Brown is an Eagle, damn it. Stop asking me these questions. Essentially, you know it's bad when this is a move that can still be questioned by the overall fan base. And again, it's hard to miss, considering everything that has been going on with A.J. Brown coverage and now Jalen Hurts coverage, apparently, because he's having friction with his teammates, quote unquote. Like, okay, I guess, the tabloids will do what they will. Dontayvion Wicks is such a weird add to this team, though. Like, genuinely, again, you're not giving up much, but it's like you're just making a weird wide receiver core even wackier. Again, Dontayvion Wicks, although he's occasionally had games where he just pops off, is inconsistent himself. As a matter of fact, if I'm right that this Thanksgiving game versus the Lions was the game in which he popped off for 2 touchdowns, well, those happen to be the only 2 touchdowns of his season. And his production, weirdly enough, he started in the most games in his career in a single season with 7 in 2025. And yet, since his rookie season, his receiving numbers have dropped on a per-year basis. Just think about that. On a team where you have so many wide receivers flooding your room to the point where even Bo Melton, the former Seahawk and a converted corner, had to switch his position and then still come back in for wide receiver reps just for the fuck of it, the chaos in that room was prevalent throughout the entire year, and Wicks still could not consistently break through for an important role on that roster. Change of scenery, my ass. You think he's just going to magically come to Philadelphia and turn into the next coming of 2020 Travis Fulgham for you? Do you really think that that is going to happen? And again, Travis Fulgham is a crazy comparison because, again, man only popped off in 2020 himself. So there is literally no way that I can understand what exactly the Eagles are aiming for with this. You're shedding off somebody. You're trying to shed off somebody. And I don't know who it is right now. But now they're in a situation where they're just overcrowding their wide receiver room. Like, it's already enough that you have A.J. Brown, I guess, and Devontae Smith. You get a thin wide receiver in Markquese Brown. You get a just non-productive, in a way, receiver out of Green Bay. And there are still mock drafts suggesting that they draft the wide receiver. So again, somebody is fucking lying. Like, literally. You have so many different avenues that you can go with. You have all these reports coming out about A.J. Brown. Somebody's not telling the truth. It's as simple as that. Somebody is lying their ass off. And eventually, there's going to be clarity on this. I would hope. Because, again, for Howie Roseman to come out there and have to say that, even with him being regarded as a great general manager in this league, that says a lot about the situation in general. And again, no, that wasn't something that came out on the Friday of this report. It, in fact, was breaking news at the top, naturally. And again, that came from Adam Schefter as well, just to provide the disclaimer there. But yeah, Eagles gotta figure something out, because it's literally like we can take a look at their existing receiving core right now with what they've picked up in the offseason. I don't know what exactly their goal is. Like, what exactly are they thinking? Let's have a look-see at this and go to their official team. Let's have a look-see at this real quick. Okay, so yeah, in terms of players here, in terms of players who would be re-signed, technically, it's A.J. Brown and Darius Cooper. But again, you have to factor in Devontae Smith as well. You have to factor in Markquese Brown as well. You have to factor in Dontayvion Wicks as well. That's already a lot as it is. And then it's literally like, what exactly you're trying to tank yourselves in the strength of that wide receiver core, in a way. Because you want to keep around A.J. Brown and you want to get him his touches, but you also want to make sure that those guys coming in are going to be productive too. So that's going to be very interesting to see how they try. And believe me, they're going to have to work hard to balance this out if this is the wide receiver core that they're retaining. Moving on to some other news here. Browning Nagle a former Jets quarterback, passed away at the age of 57 a few days back. Apparently, I was looking at it for just a second. It was apparently colon cancer that ended up being the cause. And I mean, they say all the time when I hear reports about that it can be the number one leading cause of that in terms of that specific condition out there. And it's also, at the same time, they provide the fact on those commercials and everything that it is one of the most preventable through the screening process. Now, again, it's unfortunate to have that happen to any individual. And you definitely feel for Nagle's family, all of those who consider themselves to be friends and associates of his throughout his entire life, regardless of, how long they might have been with him. Again, it's terrible to have someone go through that in that time. Again, at this stage of his life, who knows exactly what he could be up to? He could just be trying to live an honest lifestyle, live humble and free, and you got to go through something like that. It always sucks. But that's why those commercials as well, just for anybody in that case who may have at least something up, or if they suspect something is up in their body, you're not going to be able to tell off the rip if it is some form of that, like colon cancer. But that is why they suggest that you get screened, whether you have symptoms or not. So again, you definitely hope that, those people around him are trying to stay as strong as possible, as well as stress the point moving forward, one, to just try to keep pushing forward through it all. And also, whether it be others around them or just to make the general point to other people as well. Again, get tested, get screened. You don't want, in a case like that, for it to be too late before you recognize that there was something wrong in some respect of your functionality as a person. It's the worst feeling for you, for, again, those who may also have their own suspicions and, out of whatever reasoning, don't want to say anything, maybe not to scare other people, maybe to try to keep a level head through it all. You just have to try to take that initiative in a way. It can be a rough process. It is not an easy thing to go through. And I can't sit here and attest to that to say that, it's an easy thing to make that decision. Go ahead. Go do it. I can't say that from my position, but I can at least suggest that it may be, in a way, worth it. So I think that's just the fairest thing to say about that. Again, a very unfortunate situation there for the Nagle family. And again, I just hope at this point, they're a few days removed from it. They're still going through the grieving process as well. You just hope that they have the support within each other and around them to, again, continue to try to fight through that, continue to keep his name alive in that respect through, family events and things of that nature, and just continue to get the word out that, having that accounted for Whether you, again, believe that you are dealing with something of that realm or not is important at the end of the day. And you have to, again, at least make the attempt to go out there and handle your business in that way. That's really what it comes down to. Again, anytime you have something like that going on, again, as a person, just trying to talk about the sports aspect of things, it is genuinely difficult to find a way to pivot from something like that. It feels just a bit disingenuous at points to try to change the subject around on a whim like that, following news of that sort. All I can do in my position is try my best to be appropriate in regards to it. That's the best that I can do. I just don't, want to have that come across as, again, me just being weird about that or anything. Don't intend that at all. That stuff is to be taken seriously. Those are real things that real people are going through, generally, not even in just the sports realm. So it's not something to be toyed around with. I don't intend to do that at all. I genuinely don't know a right way to pivot into the next topic. All I can do is just, again, attempt to do what I can to try to make it somewhat reasonable as possible. So we'll move on from that subject of very sorrowful sentiment, very solemn, and transition into something that similarly, in a way, does not also have a lot of overall clarity right now. And I'm being genuinely serious when I say that. When it comes to the Markquese Bell situation, because as a lot of these articles say here, he apparently got himself caught up in a little bit of trouble, according to the Dallas-Fort Worth affiliate of Fox 4 in Texas. Dallas Cowboys defensive back Markquese Bell was arrested in Prosper, Texas, Friday on drug charges, end quote. And this would be last Friday. Now, again, it's not really a case where I can honestly speak on this a lot. Again, you don't want to see players put themselves in scenarios like this if all of this is found to be the case. And yet again, with some of what they found, some of what they've said in these sources, it seems like that could be true. According to ESPN, quote, the arresting officer smelled marijuana after Bell was pulled over on Friday night. A search of his vehicle uncovered less than 2 ounces of weed and a THC electronic cigarette before he was arrested and charged, according to police, end quote. Again, not really much that I can say to that. Although I will say, again, as a person who doesn't even bother with any of that at all, I can promise you I've never heard of a THC e-cigarette in my life. I didn't know that stuff like that was created, to be completely honest with you. I have absolutely no idea. I can just say that. It's like, I don't know. This isn't even the first time that something of this kind has gone down involving a player just these last few weeks or so. And again, it's like in that moment, if you're a player, again, sure, you're free to do as you please, I suppose, in a way. But you have to understand that your actions would have consequences in this scenario. Depending, on the Texas laws, I'm not exactly sure where they stand on the legality or illegality of weed in their state. Depending on where that is, you're already in a bad situation when it comes to that. If it's illegal, for one. And then again, while some states may be open carry, and while you might truly be trying to protect yourself, I get it, I understand. But you have to be aware that, again, I think there was also yeah, you just have to be a little better about that moving forward if you're Bell and this is true. Seriously, that's really like what it comes down to right now. I mean, even with this coming through a few days ago, there have not been any updates on this really. They've mentioned in these articles as well that they didn't really go into further details or didn't make them available to the public, at least yet. So, from my end, again, I can say a little bit about it here and there, but there isn't really much for me to go off of. All we know right now is that this is what Markquese Bell is facing, apparently, and that the NFL themselves can also decide on a potential investigation about it. Chances are they probably won't, if this is nothing too serious, at least with what they deem to be serious. Let's just rephrase it a little bit. So yeah, we gotta see about that in time, I suppose. But yeah, there's just not much to go off of there. Moving on to a different piece of news in regards to one specific former NFL head coach. Apparently, Dave McGinnis, a former Cardinals head coach, and he had also been doing analyst work with the Titans, I believe. They stated that he passed away at the age of 74. And again, in his case as well, I can check and see what they say that this was caused by. And okay, they say here, as I'm looking at it on NFL.com, he had an illness that hospitalized him in March. And from that standpoint, I suppose, he'd been in this same hospital naturally for quite some time as they try to do what they can as doctors, as medical professionals in that situation to maybe weed this specific condition out of the system, attack the different, I guess, again, no way of knowing what exactly the illness is, but maybe attacking whatever kind of, bacteria, viruses might be a part of that, trying to, again, rid him of that, clean it up a little bit, and try to get his health back on the right path. Unfortunately, if this was the plan, it, did not end up going that way as they would have expected. again, you know that signing up for a business like that in that industry, you want to save lives and you want to save as many as you can. Sometimes there are moments where you try everything you possibly can and it still does not go as planned. So you can imagine when you have this going down, it's not just his family feeling this. It's not just those who were coached by him potentially that are feeling this. It's not just people who became friends with him over the years who are feeling this, along with other people that he might have come across. But again, those doctors as well, in a way, are going to hold that with them a little bit. You'd have to imagine. Just to be fair to those kinds of perspectives, you don't always get insight into that. But it's, again, something that most certainly happens at a frequent rate, and you just have to watch out for it. I'm sure McGinnis, even with me not being as familiar with him, again, he was a well-respected coach. He'd been all over the league. He was with the Bears, apparently, as a linebackers coach, became the Cardinals DC and then head coach, was with the Titans for a while, and also had a head coach role with the Rams. Then he did return to Tennessee, so he was an analyst there, but he'd actually most recently been doing radio and was actually on color commentary up until 2025. So, again, a person who'd been around the sport for that much time, even as he's climbing up there in age, 73, 74, being able to continue to do and serve as a part of what he loved to be involved in throughout his adult life and formative years. That's a pretty special place to be in if you're him and if you're just watching that unfold as a family member of his or another individual. Even the people that, again, he was working with in this Titans organization on a day-to-day basis, building real connections with those people. It's going to be a very rough time for them. And again, this just recently happened on the 13th. So they're still processing this. I'd imagine in the Titans position, with him having that kind of role over decades, literally, with this team overall, I think that they'd find a way to honor him moving forward. And I'm sure if they do elect to do something like that, it's going to be a pretty sentimental time for all parties involved there. And yeah, it just, it's, again, rough to deal with things like that. So again, in the same way, you hope that the family especially, is just really, again, leaning on each other at this point. He definitely filled a lot of roles in that family overall, not just looking at it from the football standpoint, but literally being connected to so many different relatives. Filled a number of different roles in that family. And, you're always going to feel in that moment moving forward like something's missing. But you have to, again, try to fill that void in a way and be there for each other as a collective. Again, continuing to foster that positivity in each other in a way that more than likely he would have liked to witness himself in that time. That's the best thing you can do moving off of something like that. Truly. It's a hard ask because, again, you just, those things aren't going to necessarily feel the same way as they once did, in a sense. You just have to try as best as you can and just continue to show up. You've, at that point, and again, when you look at situations like this, whether it be the Nagle family, whether it be the McGinnis family, and even others that are dealing with that on a constant basis, if you are showing up, you have won half of the battle already. It can't get much simpler than that. If you're showing up, you've already won half of the battle. It takes a lot of guts, and I mean a lot of guts, for people to, again, know that they're dealing with that in a variety of different ways, and still, on a day-to-day basis, whether it be for the true passion in what it is that they are still trying to do, whether it be for the love that they have for other people that they're around, or even whether it be for other ties that they feel the need to acquire through force and hard labor, there's still something else motivating you in a way to continue to wake up and put yourself in that spot. And, again, you have to give all your respect to those people. It's as simple as that. So, yeah. You definitely hope that they're doing what they can as a collective. And, yeah. Again, they're more than likely obviously going to miss him in a multitude of ways that I would not even be able to imagine from my own position. But again, if they're still out there handling their business, showing up and being the beacons of light for each other that they may need at any moment of time, quite frankly, that's still a positive to take away from all of that tragedy. Again, I'm gonna try to transition from this as best as I can. Again, it just feels disingenuous because, in those moments, it's like, at that time, just like, I don't know, you'd much rather just have that and it off instead of, still trying to switch on to other subjects. But again, I will do my absolute best. So, with that, moving on from that piece of news over to a Giants pickup as they would sign Brandon Allen to a short-term deal. Not one that I particularly understand the decision for, but that's just me. He's going to consistently rotate around to a lot of different teams. So I guess you can't be too surprised at a point. But, man, that is just... I can't really buy that one a whole lot. For the NFL, generally, they named Brian Flinn the Senior Vice President in the Global Flag Football Initiative portion of the management. And that's could be a massive step up in a unit of their particular league where they have been trying to bring about a global exposure to the sport of flag football already, as it is. I'm not sure who was previously in this position, but if you're going to have someone take that over, I'd assume that you would want this person to share the same kind of desire to keep growing this and keep getting different players all around the world, no matter where your country of origin is, to get involved. Get out and play. That is the ultimate goal. More than anything else when it comes to flag football, especially as you're trying to ramp this up for the Olympics in 2028, as it's going to be a sport. And it kind of goes back as well when you think about this initiative. I mean, y'all remember the play 60, I believe it was? Y'all remember those early initiatives from the NFL, even going back to the early 2000s, just to have kids get out, eat, learn, and play. There have been a number of different things that have come out in the past few years suggesting that those kinds of percentages in terms of activity, and when it comes to exercise, when it comes to youth sports, they're diminishing a little bit. I mean, granted, part of that is something you can blame on some of the bullshit social media that takes place and distracts all of these younger, impressionable kids to just get themselves wrapped up in, again, bullshit, and take away largely from their opportunity to literally do anything else, be motivated to do anything else. And so when it comes to those kinds of things that have come out, part of it does come down to that shit and the advent of social media and the internet, and how everybody wants to be as critically online as possible so as to be disconnected from virtually everything, and in some cases everyone else when it comes to parasocial relationships. And also the idea of isolation, the apparent feeling of loneliness, etc., and so on and so on. You can go down a whole rabbit hole with those things, right? But again, if you can do anything, and sometimes it might take that with everybody being online, it might take those kinds of initiatives and campaigns through these mediums in order to get that attention. But if you can start to see this stuff increase in turn into something that is generally improved for the better, you know that you're on the right track. I think the growth of flag football is heading in the right direction in the way that they intend. And it's now about, again, just continuing to keep that momentum going, continuing to expand on it, and actually make the most of the opportunity that they have right now. I mean, it literally does not get much better than that. You're going to have home country, in a way, with a lot of eyes on you, whether it be them watching from the Coliseum or at home, and they're going to get to see people from all over playing flag football. They have a massive opportunity in front of their hands right now. And again, they've taken the steps forward over the years just to reach this point and just to make some of the strides that they have in flag football right now. And it feels like they're doing what needs to be done. So, you just hope that they can keep it going, because when they get to 2028, and when we talk about, again, flag football seemingly being a leisure sport, it's going to be an Olympic sport that you're going to have an entire country rally around. And there's honestly something tremendously beautiful in that. They have, like, they literally, they can't possibly understand what that might mean when it comes to just, having a whole generation rally around something like that potentially. Like, I shit you not. And, it just, they have a very good opportunity to, like, truly, I'm telling you, truly put so many of these kids, especially coming up, who again are going to be impressionable, who are going to be watching just as well as their families in this whole equation. And they're going to get to see some of their favorite players in ways, maybe, or even just people who, again, by a day-to-day basis aren't necessarily athletes in their own respect, just go out there and do what it is that they love to do. And again, it's not something that, in a way, can always happen for everyone. But, man, when they get out there, and when they go through this, they will be the first to say that they've done this on a big stage. Everything that they're doing right now is working up to a moment just like that one. And it's something that, again, you have Flinn coming in here now at this position. Everyone who has been there from the start knows, has to know, has to understand just how important that point is. I mean, hell, you almost literally have me tearing up talking about that. That's how important, that's how valuable that can become if they keep on approaching this the right way. That has to be the mission. That has to be the motto, simply put. And then for the Colts, they actually made a pretty interesting move. They would sign former Charger safety Nasir Adderley earlier in the week. Nasir Adderley retired at the age of 25 and hasn't been in the NFL in as many as 4 years. So, we've talked about some recent retirements where it's like, okay, certain players haven't been in the league for a few years in a row. Their numbers hadn't been getting called, and they thus decided afterwards to just end their careers off. This is one of the rare instances in where a player themselves is just so motivated to return to action that he just decides on his own volition to do that for himself. And it's pretty interesting. I mean, Adderley did play, at least in his last 3 seasons before retirement, he played in at least 15 games. Like, the retirement, again, is probably not something we'll really ever have clarity on. I could not tell you what exactly his rationale was for it. Because he looked, again, on the surface, and again, that doesn't tell me all the context that I would need to know. To be fair, he looked like a solid player, especially when he was playing. Obviously, at the safety position, it's going to be more about Derwin James Jr., especially at that point. But he was no slouch. He had at least 60 tackles combined in each season after his first year, and had 3 interceptions in his career up to this point. He put together back-to-back 4+ pass deflection seasons in 2021 and 2022 as well. So at the very least, this is a good rotational piece to have if the Colts are willing to keep him, and if Adderley is serious about returning and can get himself a roster spot as well. Those things are true. You get yourself a guy who can slot right in and fill a need for them that, in a way, they are still, trying to recover from, in a way. When you think about it, and how the Seahawks picked up Rodney Thomas the second, again, a solid player, a solid special teamer and rotational piece. But as I said then, you look at what he was doing with the Colts, and his percentage of opportunities, especially as a defender, were just diminishing. Now, again, that came down to tackling issues in a way, but still, you don't want to have a situation where when you need an extra player in the game, you're having to phase that same guy out on multiple occasions. If they believe that Adderley, who is, again, a few years older, maybe a little bit slower by nature, although he's primarily a free safety, so that might not matter all that much. It can be tricky. This is going to be very interesting. But at the very least, in terms of that, there's a 1-to-1 swap there. And you're getting somebody who can truly carve out a serious role with this team, who, again, is desperate for defensive back help right now. Some of it's about getting healthy at the end of the day. But they truly need any asset that they can pick up from that specific position. But that'll do it for me on this video. Again, you can have a number of different emotions about this one. Like I said, damn near almost teared up talking about the flag football thing. Again, I'm genuinely serious when I say that is truly a special moment that they are trying to work towards. It seems like they've got everything going for them. You just have to continue putting this into motion as best as possible. Because if they pull this off and this is successful, a lot of questions surround everything virtually with the NFL. And whether, again, you point to a specific motive for them even getting into flag football in the first place, that's not necessarily what I'm concerned with. They have the potential, if this works out, to have a positive influence on the way that this next generation of the youth sees sport. They have the ability to do that. because it is very rare again. Yes, you have some of your other sports like hockey, like soccer, being in the Olympics generally. You've got the NFL's name stamped all over this, with a chance to again host this in 2028 and have the off chance, maybe, considering what happened in that game, but have some of these players themselves take the mantle and actually play in a way for some of these teams. That is going to do wonders, at least in thought, for how these younger kids perceive the idea of getting more involved in youth sports. Recreationally, as a part of a team, whatever. Like I said, again, multiple things have stated that has been down all across the board over the past few years. And so anything they can do to drive that back up, there's almost nothing better than that on a large scale. There's nothing better. Everybody's looking at that. Watching that event go down for a number of different reasons, all with the same frame of mind. That I want to be like that guy playing in that flag football game. I want to try to match that. It's an entire process. And it's going to take work. Work that, again, it seems like they are doing. So it's something that I genuinely hope they can follow through on. Yeah, a number of different ways to feel about this one. But I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.